interests and abilities. I believe that very strongly. However, you have education systems which teachers are required, they have standards-based, skills-based curriculums that they're supposed to be adhering to. You also have very high parental expectations often in some of the countries and educational sort of institutions that I've been involved in. Is that a barrier? I mean, I find that, what are your thoughts on that? How do we balance all of those things as teachers in school so that children are actually getting a good deal? Your response to that?
Can I try and make one point, picking up on some of the things that were said? And I do think, whilst obviously educationists are in many ways the experts, and there is a question around most members of society having gone to school, thinking of themselves as experts by virtue of having gone to school. There's clearly problems with that. I do think, though, that it would be naive to think that schools can do it alone. And there's plenty of research out there that shows how significant and how important, for example, parental support is in terms of working with schools in order to bring about the educational achievements that we are wishing to come about. And clearly, in this new world of globalization and of financial pressures, it might well be better to try and get a whole range of expertise brought in to work with educational specialists in school in order not to have them waste too much of their time doing things that they're not necessarily been trained for and best at, so they can get on with the key task around education. So I would nuance maybe the answer to that slightly.
This is also a time, obviously, where the audience are invited to ask questions of our panelists. So, does anyone have a question they would like to ask? Yeah.
I'm from TNS, Beaconhouse, and I'm teaching the visual arts for the last 2 years over there. I have this query as we are talking the fundamental key concepts of the learning process for diversity. How are we going to ensure that we are actually practicing that? Do we have any set pattern for that? Or how are we going to ensure that actually they're applying the right skills for that? I'm sure that the strategies should be defined, and how are we going to ensure that? Do we have any set pattern for that? I'm asking all of you.
From my side, I can give a reply from my side. I'm not going to give away anything that's going to deter people from coming from my sessions in the afternoon.
It's just that being a teacher, I have this query that maybe I have the skill to apply this strategy. But how we, as a school, we are going to ensure that all the teachers are applying this in the studio environment.
So what you're talking about is having the collective understanding in a school of how the teaching and learning will occur.
Yes.
So I'm interpreting what you're saying. So I'm not talking about diversity.
Yes.
I mean, I think the important thing is that the philosophy of the school is actually embedded in an understanding that you're not an institution teaching a conformist group of individuals. You're actually teaching very individual human beings that are going to develop very differently. And I think that it's what is very important in schools and in school systems and so on is a clear philosophy and moral basis for what you're actually doing, and that is properly discussed. You know, we all believe that we inherently share common values, but if we don't actually discuss those values and and argue them out. There'll be differences. That's a good thing. Have a good discussion about it, so there's a clarity about what the school's about. And in the case of diversity, there's a clarity of valuing children as individuals and valuing their choices. That's how you start that process, rather than coming up with a series of mechanisms which ensure that you're valuing diversity.
But is there any evaluation system for clarifying?
Excuse me, can you please repeat your question?
There's an evaluation system for evaluating homogeneity.
That this process of learning is actually happening.
That you can have a system where you are showing more and more people becoming homogeneous, not being more diverse. The present systems of evaluation, standardization, the word used is standardization.
Okay.
So everything gets standardized, and now we have O levels, and everybody is terminized by O levels. I mean, they should have been kept safely in England, but they are now being perpetrated all over the world. And so this is the real problem with this. I mean, you working on TNS are doing an extremely remarkable job. As a matter of fact, I remember TNS coming up with an offspring of 2005. And all the ideas that came up in 2005, and you have to recognize that what you are doing is extremely pioneering work, and there are no role models for you. There's nobody in the established formal network who can tell you what you can do and what you have to do. But one thing that I can tell you is that you have to reduce considerably the amount of teaching that you do in such schools. And you don't reduce the teaching as such, but you reduce the teaching to the students, and you spend more time in preparing so that you give the students the space by which they can utilize all their capacities. So that the more you talk, just like I'm doing right now, the less you can talk. So if I don't do everything, as he was saying, then you're not going to get a chance. But if I make a study decision outside the school, much before the school begins, much before the period begins, much before the timing begins, and spend time there, then I will be much benefited, and the students would be much benefited. Because I would have to talk very little, and the students would have the